My name is Emily. I am a 26-year-old career woman. Currently, I live with my husband, John. I've been thinking about having children soon, but John says,
we should build a house and settle our lives before having children.
So we are currently saving money for our own home. However, I did want to have children without any delay, considering that raising children becomes more challenging as we get older, but John is stubborn once he makes a decision. This time too, when I mentioned wanting children, he responded with,
I told you, we need to build our own home first.
He wouldn't listen to my opinion. I sighed and thought, I guess I'll have to work hard to save money for our home. John and I have been married for a year now, and I can count on one hand the number of times he has ever listened to my opinions. Even when we were dating, he always ignored my opinions and insisted on his own ideas, but I liked how he had his own opinions. However, dating and married life are entirely different. While we were going out, I might have tolerated him pushing his ideas if I liked him enough, but in married life, it's impossible to go on without respecting each other's opinions. I started feeling that our marriage was all going downhill within just a year. What exacerbated my feelings was his parents. They are my in-laws. John always visits his parents' house, which is a 10-minute drive from our apartment, at least once a week. I go with him on weekends, and I asked him why he always goes to his parents' house. He would say things like,
to save our food expenses,
or
to save money to build our own home.
I was surprised at how frugal he was. The truth is, he goes out for drinks with his coworkers a few times a month. The cost of the drinks and taxi rides after getting drunk. Efforts to eliminate these expenses would definitely save more money, but he continues to visit his parents' house to save the cost of one meal. I was truly troubled by that. He tells me not to use hot water for washing dishes, and even though he's not going to bed yet, he insists that I turn off the lights and go to sleep quickly. I was amazed by his frugal methods, which were strict only to me but lenient on himself. If he were to impose the same things on me, I would be furious. However, he thinks it's okay to impose his ideas on others. And every week, when we go to his parents' house, another problem arises.
Hasn't it been a year since you got married?
We want some good news soon, when we'll be able to see our grandchild.
Hey, Emily? That's right, in the past, if a couple couldn't have a child within 3 years of their marriage, they would divorce without question.
We want to see our grandchild soon.
Both of my in-laws put pressure on me, saying,
give us a grandchild soon.
I want a child too, but... I glanced at John, who was sitting next to me. He was glaring at me, and it was clear that he wanted to say,
don't say unnecessary things.
Even though I also want to have a child soon, John is the one who insists on building our own home before having children. It's completely inappropriate for my in-laws to pressure me to have a child in this situation. In this case, it would be better for my in-laws to advise John, who doesn't listen to my words at all regarding having children. In the end, I couldn't speak up, and I kept hearing my in-laws' pressure to have a grandchild. After having the meal, John said,
I'm going out for a smoke.
You know, Emily, it seems like you're working, but if you want to be a housewife, you should quit your job and work hard to be a good wife. If you can't handle the household chores properly, maybe that's why John isn't paying attention to you.
It felt like I was being told that I couldn't have children because I was working. I am the one who wants children the most. John is the one who isn't thinking about having children anytime soon.
Just quit your job already. I heard that both you and John work at the same workplace. If it gets out that your husband is making you the wife work, John should be ashamed too. Anyway, since you're not making much money, please quit your job as soon as possible.
John and I make nearly the same income. I find it rewarding to do my job. Moreover, it was John himself who told me,
you should work too if we want to save money for our own home.
Why do my in-laws keep bringing up our agreement and blame me for it? I couldn't contain my anger and replied, it was John who asked me to work. Why don't you talk to John first before constantly saying something to me? When it comes to having children, I want them too, but it's John who stubbornly refuses to listen to me until we have our own home. Instead of constantly nagging at me, why don't you make sure you tell your son the truth? My words left my in-laws in a state of shock. I excused myself by saying, I'm sorry, and left the table, heading towards the entrance. I was also angry with John, who was leisurely smoking in front of the entrance, so I got into the car without saying anything. He also got into the car saying,
Hey, are you leaving already?
He will never tell his parents the truth, but I'm tired of being told various things by my in-laws. I won't go to my in-laws' house anymore. When I said this clearly, John widened his eyes.
Why not? We can save on food expenses, right? You also want a home soon and children, don't you?
If it's about saving, I've told you many times that we would save more if you stopped going to drinking parties or smoking instead of driving to your parents' house, just so we can save the cost of one meal. Why don't you save in that way?
Everyone needs a break, you know?
Despite that, you keep imposing things on me, like not using hot water and turning off the lights by 10 p.m. You think we can save money without sacrificing anything? If I have to go through all this trouble alone, then I don't need a home. I'm fed up with this. You never sacrifice anything yourself, but you're okay with imposing it on others? It seemed like he was saying,
It's not that big of a deal
when he realized I was unusually angry. No, it is a big deal. How much patience do you think I've had all this time? Furthermore, he seemed to be pretending in front of his parents that he was cooperating in the matter of having children. He made it seem like it was my fault that we couldn't have grandchildren. This made me extremely angry. I'm tired of being the only one asked to have grandchildren. It's not me who doesn't want children, it's John. I've been saying it for a long time. I want children soon.
So please, stop being so angry.
Seeing John so unsure about how to deal with my unusual anger, I felt a slight sense of satisfaction. He's always so confident and assertive, but now he seems unsure. However, this didn't solve everything. I wondered what to do next while ignoring John and looking outside the car window. A turning point came for us a month later. One of my relatives passed away. It was my father's brother who had passed away. Since he was a relative, I went to the funeral with John. I heard that my uncle who passed away owned several pieces of land, had a luxurious mansion, and lived a lavish lifestyle. John, who seemed to have heard about the story from someone else, said,
Impressive. I didn't know you had such a remarkable relative.
A few days later, I received news about my uncle's inheritance. I invited the lawyer who came to discuss the inheritance with me to our apartment and decided to have tea while I listened to the details. Since it was a matter related to me and had nothing to do with John, I asked him to leave the room. Besides, he seemed nervous about the term inheritance, so I didn't want him to hear the details. It would be a recipe for trouble if he got involved. After listening to the lawyer explain the inheritance in detail, I asked him to leave after about 3 hours. However, John, who had been at home until a while ago, was nowhere to be found. I assumed that he had probably gone out so as not to disturb me while I was talking to the lawyer. I started preparing dinner. At that time, I never could have imagined that he was secretly up to something. 3 months later, John told me,
There's something I want to show you.
And he took me for a drive. As I wondered where we were going with excitement, the car entered a residential area. I was puzzled, thinking we might be going to a tourist spot or for shopping. Ignoring my confusion, he said,
Get out here,
and parked the car in front of a certain house. Then he pressed the intercom at the house. My father-in-law and mother-in-law came out from inside. However, this house was clearly not my in-law's home.
You finally made it. When are you and Emily moving over here?
We're thinking of moving in by the end of this month. I need to pack Emily's things.
Well, it's Emily's fault again. Such a selfish daughter-in-law. And you always push the responsibility for having children onto John, making it seem like it's not your fault.
My mother-in-law made sarcastic remarks towards me. I glared at John. I had said that I wouldn't go to my in-law's house anymore, so I couldn't understand why he brought me here. I looked at him, wondering why he did this. He shrugged his shoulders.
Well, don't get so angry. If we live together, we can bridge the gap between you and my mom. Besides, this will be our new home from now on, so you should cooperate on the children issue as well.
Live together? Did you decide this without even telling me? I couldn't accept living with them, especially after I had already stated that I wouldn't go to my in-laws' house anymore. And what's the deal with this house?
It's a 2-family house. My plan was always for us to live with my parents eventually. So what's the problem living in a 2-family house now?
It's a big problem. And what about the money? According to our savings, we shouldn't have enough to build a 2-family house. Yet this splendid newly built 2-family house, how on earth did he manage it?
My dad and I chipped in the money, so our savings are empty. But it's fine, right? I heard your uncle's inheritance was worth $690,000, right? So if you use that money to repay us for the cost of the two-family house, it should be fine.
Huh? I genuinely couldn't understand what he was saying. Even if I were to inherit the money, it would be mine. How I use it should be my decision, not his. However, he began insisting that he believed I had $690,000 and that he intended to use that money to pay for the two-family house. What nonsense are you talking about? As I expressed a rejecting attitude towards their proposal, he grew frustrated and took a pre-filled divorce form with his name on it from his bag, showing it to me.
Your money is our money. If you don't like living together, let's get a divorce.
I quickly took the divorce form from his hand. Fine, if living together is the alternative, then divorce is the better choice. With that, I firmly placed the divorce form into my bag and turned my back on him and my in-laws. They all looked stunned, but I paid no attention. Then, as if there was one thing I had to say, I turned around. I renounced my uncle's inheritance, by the way.
Huh?
He froze with a bewildered expression. In the meantime, I took a bus and headed home to the apartment. Upon arriving home, I immediately filled in my name on the divorce form with John's name already on it. I then went to submit the divorce papers and immediately bought cardboard boxes at a home improvement store to start preparing for the move. Since I couldn't handle the move alone, I hired a moving company. It turned out that there weren't many moves happening during this season, so we could move quickly. As I was packing for the move, it seemed that John had returned because there was a commotion outside the front door. He couldn't enter since I had put the chain lock on. Oh, sorry, I had the chain lock on.
Open up.
I don't know what you might do when you're so angry. Besides, I need to finish packing for the move. Could you stay at your parents' house for a few days?
I won't accept a divorce.
I widened my eyes in surprise. But you handed me the divorce form, didn't you? If you signed the divorce papers, that means you agree to the divorce, you know. Could it be that you don't even understand that? I was astonished and spoke my mind. He frowned, looking frustrated. However, he quickly changed the subject.
Anyway, why would you give up on $690,000 inheritance? Normally, you'd inherit it.
It seemed like he had overheard that I had the right to inherit $690,000, but hadn't heard anything else about it. Most likely, after the conversation about the $690,000 inheritance came up, he immediately went to my in-laws and told them that his wife was going to inherit $690,000, and they all got carried away and purchased the two-family house without thinking it through. Their impulsiveness was quite astounding. Why do you think the inheritance discussion came to me in the first place?
Huh? Wasn't there anyone else to inherit it?
There was. We all attended the funeral together, don't you remember? My uncle had 3 sons and 2 daughters. He also had a wife and grandchildren. But all of them renounced the inheritance, so it ended up coming to me, the relative.
Well, isn't that lucky then?
My uncle had indeed $690,000, but he had to demolish his mansion, spend a lot on maintaining his land, and he had plenty of debt. So I realized that renouncing the inheritance was better than inheriting it.
No way. So even if you had inherited $690,000, you're saying there wouldn't have been much money left? That's fraud.
The lawyer and I had a proper discussion about it, but someone who was eavesdropping apparently left before hearing the whole story. My words left him speechless. Perhaps he finally realized he was in the wrong. However, it's too late now. He betrayed my trust. We've already filed for divorce, and he and I are no longer as a couple. Why are you suddenly saying you don't want a divorce now? If you truly didn't want a divorce, you should have followed me right away when I returned, shouldn't you?
Well, my mom said I should divorce you, but she doesn't understand. Do you know how much my father and I paid for that two-family house? My mom has never worked before, so she doesn't appreciate the value of money.
I sighed. It wasn't my role to listen to his complaints about his parents. If we were still a married couple, I might have listened, but...
You haven't submitted the divorce papers yet, have you? If you do it now, we can still be a couple, please. Please, let's live together in that two-family house.
I've already submitted the divorce papers, so it's pointless now.
Huh? You already submitted them? That can't be true.
It's true. He slumped in front of the apartment door, looking bewildered and lost. While I believe he brought this upon himself, I couldn't have him lingering outside forever. I briefly considered sending him away, but upon reflection I realized I had no time to waste, so I continued with my preparations for the move. After a while, he was gone. I proceeded with the move and informed my workplace about the divorce. Especially since my boss had acted as our mediator, I felt obliged to apologize for the divorce. I also told my co-workers who had been invited to our wedding about the divorce. During lunch break, he burst into my department, right in front of my co-workers, exclaiming,
"It's absurd that you're talking about the divorce reason. I wish you hadn't mentioned the divorce."
He did all this in front of my colleagues. His supervisor eventually took him away. In fact, I hadn't told him the full reason for the divorce, but he assumed that I had, and in his department disclosed.
"I thought my wife inherited an estate and suggested we buy a 2-family house for both our families. When she had to choose between divorce or living together, she chose divorce."
Now he's being avoided by everyone. I found myself receiving sympathy too. Somehow he ended up quitting his job. Recently, a male colleague confessed to me, saying,
"I've actually liked you for a long time."
"Now I hope to build a home where we can communicate as a couple and work things out together."